So I've been going to a few social events lately. I've been going back to Toastmasters. I went to a rooftop party the other day, and people ask you, what do you do? What do you do? And lately I've been answering, I help people with a subset of weight loss called intuitive eating. And you might be wondering, what the heck is intuitive eating? So I've been going to these different social events lately, and it seems like intuitive eating, people know kind of what it is. Like, everyone's heard of it. Like, the most common reaction I'm getting is where someone says, "Oh, intuitive eating, that's where you like eat what you want to eat," right? Like, people have kind of heard of intuitive eating, and I feel like, oh man, maybe I should like make a video about what the heck intuitive eating is and how I got into it and what it actually is. And you're right, if you are thinking intuitive eating, like it's something that you just, oh yeah, you eat what you want to eat. That's a huge part of it, but it's not like that's not the only thing that is intuitive eating, okay? So you might be wondering like how intuitive eating can help me. Well, it can help you if you're a dieter and you failed at every single diet before. You might be wondering like, is intuitive eating for me? Maybe not. If you have a good relationship with food, it might not be for you. But if you have food anxiety, if you feel unconfident around food, if you aren't trusting food, that's when this thing called intuitive eating is very, 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 very good. So like, what is intuitive eating? And how is it different than a diet? Especially if you've tried dieting before and you've been promised that there's all this science, like this is proven by science to help you lose weight. And you've heard all this shit before. Like, why should you trust intuitive eating? Why should you like believe in another fad or whatever? Like, there's been so many diets, right? Like, before what are the diets? Come on, like, if you want to just comment below or something with some of the diets or the fads that you've heard of, like, there was like low fat, right? That was huge. All this science saying like low fat, bad, or fat is bad. But now people are like, oh, fat's good. And you've done that like 1,000 times, right? So like, is intuitive eating just the same thing? You gotta think about what intuitive eating is. And that's why there's so much conversation around these days, because intuitive eating, it sounds like it's not a diet. And it sounds new. And it is new. And it's beautiful. I freaking love it. I first got exposed to it when I was living as a Buddhist monk, and we would be mindful with our food. But more than that, more than mindful with food, we could choose what to eat. We had a large selection of food during the summer season where we really could eat whatever we wanted to. And we were encouraged to be mindful. And there was this wonderful atmosphere back at Tassajara with a guilt-free, right? Like, you're practicing being in the moment, you're practicing connecting to your body and just being there with your body. And it's much more than intuitive eating. That's a broader aspect of intuitive eating that people are kind of missing as I go to these social events. They say, oh, intuitive eating, right? Like, that's where you eat what you want to. Yes, it is. It's also learning your body cues, hunger, fullness, but more importantly, this is where we got to have a broader and bigger conversation, all right? It's a culture. It's a culture, right? And this culture, I call it the just do it culture. The just do it, like Nike, right? Just do it. Just eat less. Just exercise. Just do it. Come on, you lazy. You're lazy if you don't, right? Like, that's what people are missing, and that's what I think is the biggest thing missing for a lot of people, is the fact. This is the key thing that intuitive eating is about. It's about psychological fullness, emotional fullness, because that psychological fullness right there, like, hear me out, like, when you feel complete, not just full, physically full in your body, right? Like, you can feel physically full but not feel complete. You can still want more food. You might have just eaten like a snarf ton of food, and then you're all, God dang, I'm still hungry. Like, I still want more, I want more. And that wanting more, what you can't fulfill, That's what intuitive eating is about. It's about those cravings that you can't get rid of and that no diet ever talks about. You ever notice how diets, they don't talk about cravings? Like, not that much. Like, a little bit, sure. They say, oh, like, you shouldn't be hungry, blah, 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 blah. But they don't talk about psychological fullness. Not in the way that intuitive eating does, in my experience. Intuitive eating, you learn how to be psychologically full. So a lot of that comes back to that just do it paradigm. Remember the Nike thing I was just talking about earlier? Nike, just do it, just do it. That's everywhere. In magazines, when you go to the grocery store, there's like magazines telling you to just do it, just look a certain way. Like, body image is huge. Like, that's part of this just do it culture. Just look a certain way, just like fit in. And so the just do it culture, they give you this, like, you know, this thought process. This is the thing. It's a paradigm. It's a viewpoint. And you got to be aware that you're in this. Like, this is why my thing is called weight loss enlightenment, okay? Because not many people know that they're in this just do it culture. They're blind to it. They're ignorant of it. But when you start seeing that there's this diet culture around you, you wake up. You're like, oh my God, this diet culture is preventing me from feeling psychologically full, psychologically, emotionally full. That's why every single diet fails me, because I'm never psychologically full. I'm never emotionally full. And so intuitive eating is much more about, you know, your personal path to finding joy with food. And that's the key. Your path with food, your relationship with food. That's the emphasis. Your relationship with food. So yeah, that's a good intro for now. What questions do you have? I know I can't answer all these questions in like a little, 7-minute video, but what questions do you have? I want to know. I want to try to have my best to answer them. And when I try to answer them and fail, or, you know, leave unanswered questions and you ask more questions, that's how we're going to have a dialogue that will, be good for me, be good for you, blah, 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 blah. So ping me questions, email, comment below. And wow, I look like a pale vampire, but maybe that's because I am a pale vampire. Just a white dude on a lawn. Whatever. All right. I don't know where that came from. See, I'm self-sabotaging myself. Fuck.